I guess today I just wanted to go over my Warbringer build. I just hit level 70, got to tier 1 maps, and my build is still primarily what I use to level, especially after level 41, where you get most of your Warcry goodies. So I'm just going to do a quick rundown of how the build works, what skills I'm using, passive tree, everything you need to try it out yourself. So the main damage of the build, the primary damage of the build, is going to be using the Corrupting Cry support gem. What it's going to do is apply a debuff to your enemies. It stacks up to 10 times and it applies physical damage over time. You attach this to your war cries, either Infernal Cry or Seismic Cry, along with whatever supports you can get that will scale your non-ailment damage. So we are going to use Brutality and Swift Affliction while we level. I'll talk later about how we're going to continue to scale this, and probably the most important thing here is that the Corrupted Blood is going to scale off of your strength. You'll see that on the Corrupted Blood support gem. It scales off of 20% of your strength. So currently I am at 658 strength. What makes this build great is that is pretty much the only stat you really have to commit to on your gear, on your passive tree, on anything else about your character. That's where you're going to get your damage. So looking at the gear, like I was saying, you're going to look for items with strength. Most of what I'm showing you here is what I leveled with. There's going to be a few exceptions, like I believe the helm, the boots, and the weapon I recently purchased for, I believe just an Exalt each. That was most of my like trade filters, was I was looking for items that were an Exalt or less. So it's a relatively cheap build, especially to level and to get to maps and to really cruise through Cruel. That was the biggest part of this build. Everyone knows that a warrior leveling is pretty awful up until about the 30s or 40s, but after that it is smooth sailing. When the game came out, I took probably the first like day and a half to get through the first acts 1 through 3. Cruel itself, once the build got rolling, especially when I got all my skill gems, much more strength gear, that was probably 4 to 5 hours tops. Like, it was pretty trivialized. I wasn't struggling with bosses, struggling with clear. It was all quite easy. One of the things you're going to notice is I still have my links to Infernal Cry. That is going to be the war cry that you get first. You're not going to get Seismic Cry until level 41, I believe. Depending on your preference, you can definitely switch everything to Seismic Cry right away. The main benefit you're going to get there, it's not going to be the physical damage or the hit or anything like that. You're just going to have the knockback to keep you a bit safer. The only reason I haven't switched is I plan on using Seismic Cry later to scale when I get my additional support gem slot here. I will add on Drain Ailments, in which case I will use the hit for Seismic Cry to apply bleeds, and then, you know, use Drain Ailments to get that 35% more damage. So, like I was saying, on gear, you want to look for strength. It's pretty straightforward. There's a great unique chest you can pick up really early that'll give you 20% increased strength. On top of that, your passive tree is going to be a huge source of your additional damage. So looking at the passive tree, of course, we did go Warbringer. One of the main things you're going to want to grab are these nodes here. The first one's going to give you the Warcry Corpse Explosion, which will absolutely improve your clear. And then on top of that, you're going to have the Great Wolf's Howl, which will ignore Warcry cooldowns. So while you're leveling, of course, it's going to take a bit to get to Great Wolf's Howl. While you're leveling, you're going to focus on nodes that improve your Warcry cooldown rate. Because if we take a look at Corrupting Cry, the duration is 5 seconds. And then your initial cooldown for Infernal Cry is 8 seconds. That's going to prevent you from getting any stacks on your Warcry on your Corrupting Blood, so you're going to have like very minimal damage until you get enough cooldown that you're going to be able to apply additional stacks. Once you get to that point, it should be right around I'd say the end of the first 3 acts, right before you get the Cruel. You'll be able to apply more stacks, especially to bosses. It'll be much easier because of their large health pool. So even if, say, you can only Warcry every 4 seconds, you get that additional second to continue to apply stacks. And every time you apply a new stack, it will also refresh the rate of the Corrupting Blood, so you can continue to keep that debuff on bosses. And I'll show footage later on so you can see what that looks like. Most of my footage, I believe, is from Acts 1 through 3 in Cruel. So you can kind of see, like, right when the build goes online, what it looks like, what you're going through until you get that ignores cooldowns, which will just make your life so much easier. The mana cost is going to be a big thing early. Most of what I did to circumvent the mana cost is you're going to look for items or runes that give you mana per enemy killed and life per enemy killed. You can also, on the passive tree, you can go to, where is it? Yes, the Urgent Call. This node, this passive node, is going to give you 2% of life and mana when you use a Warcry. That'll super improve your quality of life. Highly recommend that. Like I said early on, keep getting cooldown recovery rate. Do whatever you can to get strength. You'll see most of these nodes, I think literally all but maybe 2 or 3 of the nodes, I pick strength. You'll pick dex and int occasionally depending on gear requirements, but you're going for strength because that's going to scale your health pool and that's going to scale your Corrupting Blood damage. So the things to really focus on, and some big nodes to scale your damage, you don't have too many options like you would a typical build that hits or a spell. What you're going to need is either Global Fizz, Warcry damage, or you have nodes like Lay Siege, which is going to give you 1% increased damage per 1% to block. There's another node just like this up here. It is Offensive Stance. It's the exact same node. You can scale your damage that way. And most of the other nodes I have are all just going to be physical damage, because the thing to note is it is not going to matter what physical damage you have on your weapon. It will not apply to your Corrupting Cry. So this will only apply to the weapon hits. So in terms of stats, you don't really have to care about anything, which kind of makes shopping easier. If you're on the trade site, you're just looking for things that are beneficial to your strength or might make your quality of life when you're going through the maps easier. So gaining life per hit, gaining mana per hit. This unique chest gives you no life regen, so if you're using that early, it's really great to get that bonus life and bonus mana. I'd say the pros of this build: you get really fast clear, especially after your second ascendancy. It really trivializes the bosses. I had a lot of instances where I got to skip some of the annoying phases of bosses. You think about like Geonor, the Act 1 boss, especially in Cruel. He didn't even make it to the phase where the zone kind of encloses on you and he does the dashes back and forth. I didn't have to deal with any of that. Pretty much one-phased him. It makes it significantly easier. The Corpse Explode is going to make clear so much better. You'll start to pay attention to like when you get corpses. It's especially great when you have like say a rare mob surrounded by a bunch of white mobs. You'll kill the white mobs much faster and then use the white mobs to apply additional damage to the rare mob with your Warcry. You get a huge health pool, so one-shots did not happen very often. I think there was like less than 5 times where something would hit me hard enough to kill me in one hit. So you don't have to worry about that. Maps early on, like I said, I just got the tier 1, so I'm pretty much cruising through those, not having too much issue. I am starting to use the Seismic Warcry more to kind of create space if you get surrounded. That's mostly because I have not geared enough to get my resistances up, so I am still having issues where if you get surrounded and you have, you know, enemies that are doing elemental damage more so than physical, you'll run into issues there. But with high enough block chance, high enough armor, you don't have to deal with physical hits too much. Pack density is great, so the more enemies around you, the better, especially with the corpse explosions on top of that. I'd say cons is your typical warrior cons. The leveling process is awful. Pretty much play whatever you can to make your life easier. I know Seismic Totems is a big one now that people have caught on to, for it'll kind of cruise you through the leveling phase. You can also go with Earthquake. pretty much whatever you can manage. One of the other options, if you already have a character and a few exalts laying around, you can go with the monk setup, where you basically use a staff to level, and you're going to use what is it? You want a Mega Nords for early stats, and then a Pillar of the Cage Gods, and just use the monk skills to level. They're significantly better. That's probably going to be the way that the leveling process goes for the warrior until we see more weapons get released. I suspect that, just like in the first game, axes are going to hugely improve quality of life for leveling, but until then, you are going to have a slow and tedious time as you go through the first 3 acts. That's just kind of part of it, unless you're playing a caster or a ranger at this point. Leveling and gearing, don't sleep on blue gear. You can get some great stats on it, especially early strength. Just strength and anything else will carry you through most of the early levels. You don't really have to worry about resistances. The strength that you're getting on your passive tree is going to increase your health pool enough that you're generally safe. So just focus on solid blue gear and get strength where you can. So in terms of skill links, like I said, I've got this attached to Infernal Cry right now. You can also use Seismic Cry after level 41. Your main damage dealer is going to be Corrupting Cry, followed by Brutality, which you can pick up really early, followed by Swift Affliction. One of the things I'm going to look for next is Drain Ailments. You've also got Increased Duration, and some of the long-term items you can get are like uniques like Astramentus to give you huge strength gains, and really just anything that's going to continue to grow your strength there. So, I want to finish up with the passive tree. So some of the nodes that I found were really stellar. There's a very, very solid polymathy one here. Okay, so continue with the passive tree. Like I said, you're going to focus on physical damage. You're going to focus on Warcry cooldown reduction early on until you get your ascendancies, strength while you path through the tree, and any nodes that are going to increase your damage overall. There's a great stat star down here. You can get this node. It'll give you 10% increase attributes, and the smaller nodes just give you +3 to all attributes. That will really carry your Infernal Cry. And keep in mind, right now DPS is about 1400. You get 10 stacks of that. The scaling's quite easy. The clear's quite easy. Quality of life overall good. It kind of feels like you're playing a Path 1 character in PoE 2. So what I'm going to do now is just kind of go over some early footage. I'll play that in the background so you can see what it looks like to clear, what it looks like for bosses. And that is pretty much everything I wanted to cover today. Thanks for watching my first YouTube video. I'll continue upgrading the build and doing updates to the showcase so you guys can see what I'm aiming for. There's a lot of uniques that we can add to this. Like I was saying, the Astramentus amulet we can add. There's a great helm that gives you % strength. Okay, so what I'll do now is I will just play footage for what it looks like to clear, what it looks like to boss, especially in Cruel, Acts 1 through 3. You guys can kind of see what it looks like once you get online with this build. And yeah, thank you all for watching my video. It's the first one I've done on YouTube, and have a great day.
Help me. It's insane. You'll burn. First,